Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Hello, Bat family, and welcome to this episode number 194 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor and a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all of the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow us on Twitter at BatPodNetwork. I'm Garret Grev. You can follow me on Twitter at GarrettWado and send me email topics, suggestions, feedback. Maybe you have a delicious red sauce recipe that's been handed down from generation to generation of your traditional Italian family. I would love that. Do that at garrett.grev@batmanonfilm.com. As always, thank you for listening. And of course, dear listeners, we all know that we have been continuing down the road, headed squarely towards the very beginning of March and Matt Reeves' The Batman. And on our journey, we've been revisiting some influential storylines that to one level or another have influenced Matt Reeves' The Batman. And we've also been taking a look at key characters that we know are going to be in the upcoming film and reviewing important storylines or appearances of those characters, whether it be in comic books or movies or animation, both to, let's go back and learn about some of these very important figures, as well as taking a look at what we might learn about or be able to deduce. Of course, we are all followers of the world's greatest detective, about the characters as they may appear in the upcoming motion picture. And tonight, I am pleased, very pleased, to jump into the giant yellow bath ducky, to head down the street to the Iceberg Lounge. Yes, that's right. We are talking about Gotham's tuxedo-wearing gentleman of crime, the Penguin. The Penguin, who will be portrayed in the upcoming movie by Colin Farrell. Yes, that's Colin Farrell. If you have seen the previews and the trailers, you might not believe me because, oh my gosh, the makeups and prosthetics going on and Farrell doing a very non-Colin Farrell accent, you could be surprised. Now, this is a portly gentleman for me to try to tackle all by myself, so I shan't do it alone. No, that would be dangerous. He could flap his wings and fly away. Penguins can't fly, but you know what I'm saying. So I've got a partner in crime with me down here in the Batcave. Yes, I am joined by fellow BOF senior contributor, a smoke pit master, a long box aficionado, a man you need to put in the work to impress, an OG straight out of Gotham and BOF's resident pizza reviewer, Mr. Peter Verra. Peter, welcome back to the show, my friend.
I thought this was the Uxas tribute episode. I read the wrong book. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Final Crisis.
Funny. Yeah. Have you owned that one for a while, or was it a recent purchase?
It's been in the box. It's been in the long boxes for probably since 2007?
7, yeah. Yeah, flopping around.
I haven't revisited.
I know. It's not one I've gone back to the well on a bunch of times either. But no, it is not Uxas, although I did think about including an Uxas blurb in your introduction, but there's just too much other goodness to get out. And I know this has been talked about on, numerous podcasts now between, I think it was mentioned on the Satellite Show. I heard you talk about it on one Ryan Lauer's Batman Book Club, but I definitely wanted to mention the Little Caesars Calzony thing that I watched the video, Peter. I could feel my teeth sinking into that dough, like not crunching through it, but just sort of like settling into the dough. I'm hoping that's not the pizza old Oswald is serving up at the Iceberg Lounge, if that's what they have there.
I would say no, considering Gotham City is in New Jersey. I would assume that any place in New Jersey has a much better pizza than whatever Little Caesars is serving up. But for the price point, for $7,
hot and ready.
It's tough to beat when you're hammered and they're the only place open.
And you get a commemorative box and a poster, right? Like that's also.
Yeah. So the pizza, I think I paid $7 for a box and poster, and the pizza was free. That's how I like to look at it.
And you got 2 boxes, if I remember correctly, right?
I got a clean box and a box that came with the pizza, which I threw out because it was just covered in grease.
Now, if my Norwegian and Mexican self walked in to a pizza spot and asked for an extra free box, they probably wouldn't give it to me. But because you're a real paisan, what's the word? Like just a real deal.
I don't know how many Italians are working Little Caesars.
Little Caesars. I know. Is that you don't think
Mr. Illich was Italian since he's
you don't think they're hiring dudes from the old town, from the old neighborhoods? That's not how it works.
Chances are they're probably working at Vinny's.
Yeah. I don't, this all starts to feel mafia adjacent to me. And that's where I get terrified. And I just don't want to talk about it. Like a lot of respect. I don't go there. I just
keep your mouth shut and keep
my mouth shut, my eyes down. Right. I've seen The Sopranos. I'm not messing around with you Jersey boys. All right. Well, Peter, it's obviously we're getting hyped up. It is just a matter of weeks. I mean, basically, if this was elementary school, and this was December, we would be making those paper chains, where you tear a little paper ring off each day to Christmas. Only we're grown men and we're counting down the days to the Batman. Obviously, we've talked about this before. I know you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. We've got an upcoming watch party down just outside of Dallas, Texas, where Bill, editor-in-chief Ramey, is putting together a real nice shindig. So we're looking forward to interacting with some BOFers. And meeting a big chunk of the BOF boys, the Bat Boys in person for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, just the community in general. There's a lot of people who follow the website who are apparently going. Bill's really hyped about it. He seems more and more people seem to be coming as the time goes on. I'm excited. I mean, I'll meet you in person for the first time. I'll meet Lauer in person for the first time. That'll be fun. I will tolerate Rick in person once again.
I've never met Rick in person for as many hours as I've spent talking to
Rick
that guy.
Rick is a tall dude.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to need to go back to back and little pencil mark on the wall for who's tall. Cause I feel like I think
Lauer's a tall guy as well. So
Lauer's also tall. Yeah. There's going to
be
some
juices
big boys.
Pecs.
He does. I mentioned it on the last episode. That guy's putting in the work too. He's doing all the push-ups. He's going to be flexing out whatever TeePublic shirt that he's rocking. And
look out, Ryan Powers.
I feel like Powers should take a lesson. I feel like I need to spend a little more time in the gym to get ready for this. But I mention it because if you head over to the website, I've had 2 or 3 people reach out to me in the DMs, as the kids say on Twitter, about the watch party. I'm getting really excited because I think there's going to be people there that I am looking forward now to interacting and meeting that I didn't know were planning on coming. So if you would like some information, head over to the website. It is batman-on-film.com. You can check out the info for the watch party. We'd love you to come and interact. That sounds like a blast.
I think it'd be great. Let's come
and hyped up.
See some tacos and watch Batman.
It's hard to get better than that. The only thing, Peter, that might make it better than eating tacos and watching movies is maybe if you had some cool action figures to play with while you do it.
Where does it get those wonderful toys?
Well, Peter, every once in a while we do this segment when it's just, mano y mano, or we don't have maybe a burning desire, even though the fans demand it. I'm probably going to get some hate mail on this. We don't have a thrilling new edition of the Bat trivia game sweeping the nation. What are you? And we go to Peter's toy box because you always have the goodies for all the boys and girls to learn about and maybe add to their shopping list. So, Peter, if you'd be so kind, could you let the listeners know what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Well, the only thing we've been talking about, what seems like forever, the Batman. McFarlane Toys has finally been shipping the Batman action figures. Wave 1 consists of the Batman, Catwoman, and the Riddler. I was able to get all 3 of them. And I'm actually really impressed as always. I'm a big fan of McFarlane toys. I got one gripe with them. There seems to be, as has recently been with McFarlane, there seems to be a little of a quality control issue. The maskless Batman, obviously it looks like he doesn't have his cowl on, and his hood is pulled back. So some people have been getting the maskless Batman body with a cowled Batman head. And the listener can't see it, but Garrett, you can see right here. It looks like Batman has a hood here.
Oh yeah,
instead of his collar. I
it's
reached
even
out to
more
McFarlane
like
Toys.
a hood. Yeah.
Yeah, still the figure looks great. He looks very movie accurate from what I have seen in a few trailers. I have reached out to McFarlane Toys. All I got was an automated message, so I'm still waiting. It was via email, but I've heard nothing but great things from their customer service. So I hope that they do get back to me with some sort of resolution, because I hit up 2 Targets today to try to return my figure, and it just pull off an easy exchange. And while they were in the store, they were nowhere to be found. So that was a bit disheartening. But even though the Batman figure has come with this little slight defect, I'll call it, it's still an impressive looking figure. It looks like Robert Pattinson. He's got that distinctive look in the lips and the jawline. And it's cool. I mean, it's just I'm really impressed with how McFarlane's been making these figures. My favorite one has to be Zoe's Catwoman. I'm really impressed with this. This one, Reno actually pointed out to me, it's a different design than what's in the movie. This might be an earlier design, because if you look at the trailer, she kind of has like the triangle underneath the nose and the mouth, and you could see her mouth. This looks like she has the full ski mask, and I didn't realize that until Reno pointed it out. But I still think
it looks a little bit more like a little bit more structured through the mask as you're showing me this. And listeners, you can find all these online, very easy to search for images.
Target.com, Amazon.com.
And when we get the episode up and I tweet it out, typically I'll throw a couple of these pictures on in the thread too. It almost looks like a more structured, like ninja mask kind of.
Yeah, she does look like a ninja, but I think I even dig this look, to be honest with you. She looks like a jewel thief, a little criminal, like she, concealing her identity. It's really great. And the Riddler figure I got was, I really dig it. Interesting. I don't know if this is in the movie or not, but it looks, there's some sort of like, he obviously has the green mask and the clear glasses, but the figure looks like it has some kind of like translucent half helmet on the back end of his mask. I don't know if that's something we'll see in the movie. That's to be determined, but it's pretty simple. He's wearing his green coat. He's got his question mark because he is the Riddler. That's what the Riddler wears, green question marks. He's got his military boots. Yeah. And it's cool. It seems like the question mark on the jacket pocket changes from figure to figure. That looks like they're different designs. It looks like he comes with a windshield scraper. I don't know what that is.
Really?
Yeah, like he's got this little like scraper here.
It's icy.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's something that's in the movie. I kind of wish we got some duct tape. That's a little bit negative.
Maybe a little morbid, but yeah.
And it's interesting. The whip that came with Catwoman is a little off, but that's not a big complaint for me.
Is it a plastic mold or is it fabric?
It's like for what, the whip? It's like the pliable. It feels like the same material that he's been making the capes out of. It's like this kind of like, I don't know, plastic rubbery thing. It's light.
Vinyl.
I don't know if it's vinyl or not. It could be. But it's just, it doesn't really sit in her hand too well, but it's not, it's like, I figure I can find some bendy wire and make a better whip myself. The most interesting thing actually with the Batman is that he comes with a grapnel gun, but there's a port in his palm. He has like this one, like slapping hand. So he never actually holds the gun, even though he has like a gun holding hand, but you port the grapnel gun into his hand like this. And
interesting. So it kind of clicks in.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know why he would hold it like so flat like that. I don't know why they just want to give him like a gun holding hand. I know that McFarlane hasn't been including guns in his figures lately. I think that's kind of a bummer. But if you check out, but if you're looking for toy guns, check out MrG'sToys.com. He makes handmade, hand-painted, custom toy guns. I bought the Peacemaker bundle from him, so I'll get a belt, I'll get the Desert Eagle and the silencer. I think they're very accurately priced for handmade quality guns. Check out his website, check out his IG page. Really top-notch stuff there. And just be aware that if you do order from Mr. G, because these are handmade and hand-painted, it will take some time for him to make the mold, paint them. I ordered mine last month. I'm not getting the delivery until April, he says. So It'll take some time, but I think it's worth it if you want quality.
Wow, geez, it sounds like some artisanal, handmade, crafted toys. It's like the hipster of toy weapons. That's pretty high end stuff.
And I shared his website on the Batman on Film Facebook group for other people. If you're curious, just send me a message on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll be glad to share it if you can't find it.
Peter, you mentioned these figures are available for retail, Target, Walmart, Amazon, all the standards.
Yep.
What's
Standard
the price point
$20.
on these?
$20 bucks.
Wow, $20. That's
$20.
reasonable.
That's not bad. And that's, the 76, the 66 line, because they were inch smaller, they were $17. So they're pretty accurate. They're pretty fairly priced. And, I think, they're cheaper than Marvel Legends. And, I think that they're just as good, but Todd has been kind of slacking a little bit with the QC. I know a lot of people had issues with Batman Year 2, and a lot of people are having this cape problem. So if he could just straighten that out, I think it would be better. I don't know if McFarlane Toys was ready for the type of demand that is the DC fan base.
This scale. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're kind of still adjusting.
And as you said, that figure doesn't look bad. It just looks like it's the cowl that would be pulled off the head and sitting behind the neck, rather than what Bill and I have both referred to with our, football playing meathead brains as the neck roll.
The old Brian Cox.
Exactly.
Looking at the figure straight on, I don't notice it really. Like, it looks fine. The only reason it would be an issue is if you're into articulated comic book art, if you're taking photos of your toys and you're taking a shot of Batman from the back over his shoulder, that type of thing. Sure. That's when you'll see it. But I'm not really that mad because of the quality of the figure. It's just, like I said, it's a little bit disappointing because the last two Batman figures I've gotten from Todd, I've heard nothing but bad things, and people have been having issues. Again, I told you all, when it comes to Batman Year 2, take a hairdryer to that figure from the top to bottom, melt the glue that's in the bicep and the shoulder, and you're not going to break off that joint. But, and that's something you should be doing as an action figure collector when you're collecting these things. First thing you should do is, if it's a stiff joint, don't force it. It's plastic. Take a hairdryer to it, apply some heat, and the plastic will soften and it'll be a little bit more posable.
So Peter, all in, what's a grade that you would give to the BOFers listening? What's the stamp of approval? Go buy these things. Is this a B+,
I think you got to go
B
buy them. I really
situation?
do. Yeah, 100%. I'm giving them an A. It'd be an A+.
Nice.
It'd be an A+ if I had the proper cape. But that's it. Like, I think they're great. I think they look like the characters. Granted, they're all wearing masks, so I can't really see the face. I know Reno likes to harp on face sculpts. He claims that the Superman figures look like John Travolta, which I kind of agree with, but I think Travolta would have made a great Superman.
I was going to say, there's an alternate universe where Travolta made a heck of a Superman.
I take it over Nick Cage.
Yeah, any day of the week. And at $20, it's pretty hard to not get. No. I was thinking McFarlane figures had a higher price point for some reason. I don't have a lot of them, and they're not McFarlane, but just thinking about higher end collector figures. The recent wave of Masters of the Universe, Masterverse figures are like a $30 figure, $30 to $32. For some reason, I was thinking the Todd figures were up in that range. So $20 is super reasonable.
No, and don't get me wrong, he's got some figures that are crazy. The Batman Year 2 was like a $50 figure. That's a bit because it's more diorama than anything else. And I'll say this: McFarlane makes a ton of vehicles. I'm really surprised we haven't gotten a Batmobile yet, but there is a Bat Cycle coming. I have that pre-ordered as well, so that'll be coming, and I'm excited for that. And he's made a Bat Raptor, the '66 car. I think he's doing a fantastic job with creating a wide variety of figures. If he could just get his QC stuff, I think he'd be straight.
All right, Todd. Well, you heard it from the man himself. Take that feedback and tell your customer service people to get back to Peter.
Yeah, answer my email.
Yeah, because he's the man with the toy box, and you've been listening to it. Peter's Toy Box.
Just get those wonderful toys.
All right, boys and girls. Now to the topic at hand. He's waddling around. He is creating crime. Don't bump into him. Don't be rude, because as we'll hear about in the story we're about to review and discuss, doesn't end up well for people that do. It's the Penguin.
My name's not Penguin. It's Oswald Cobblepot.
All right, Peter. So you suggested, let me start with this. I know my friends. I know who's passionate about Oswald. And Mr. Cobblepot is somebody that you are quite fond of, correct?
Oh yeah, I love Ozzy. I'm a big Ozzy guy.
Obviously, we are going to be talking about the story that we're going to be reviewing and discussing this evening. So maybe we'll leave that on the shelf for just a moment. What is your favorite iteration of Oswald Cobblepot the Penguin?
Are we talking all different mediums?
Yeah, throw them all in there. Everything's fair game. If you had to pick one and say that's my fave, which one is that?
My all-time favorite version of Oswald has to be the Oswald we see in No Man's Land. No Man's Land is my favorite Batman storyline. There's a lot going on in there. I don't think there's ever been a comic book written like it before or since. So that's probably my favorite iteration of Oswald. And coming up in a close second, as everyone knows, is Mr. DeVito in Rick Schue's favorite movie, Batman Returns.
Get in the duck.
I love that duck. I love that duck.
Oh man, it is. That is like, you think back to like a piece of like set design or, just a design element in general, vehicle, I don't know, whatever you'd want to call it. It kind of fits all the bills, just kind of straight up absurdist abstract art to have involved in a motion picture that stands out just really, really well. And regardless of your thoughts of Batman Returns, everybody knows that duck. And that really says something.
I can't believe they didn't make toys of it, to be honest with you. It's the one thing I felt like that they didn't make a toy of was the duck until much later on. I believe the closest thing you can get in 1992 was a die-cast like Matchbox version, and then Hot Wheels years later came out with a more updated version of the duck. I have both of them, and they're not within reach, but they are within eyesight, and I love my duck.
Yeah, it did feel like it was something that, like, for as toyetic as they really wanted to make the Burton Schumacher movies as they continued to progress, it felt like a huge missed opportunity. It seemed like that's the thing that some producer was like, what we need? We need another toy. Get me another toy in this picture. I don't give a crap what it is. Give me a big yellow duck, whatever. But of course, like Burton's just too goofy and too much of an auteur to roll with that. So it's just pure, just batty, crazy genius that got that thing in the film.
Yeah, and there's context to it. Like, we all know Oswald hangs out in that little zoo, Arctic lair, and those ducks seem to be some sort of ride dangling when we first see the penguin. So, we know where he got it from. He didn't make it himself.
Yeah, no. He's repurposing. He is one man's trash is another man's treasure. So he's not going out and building anything from scratch.
Wonderful writing.
Unlike the penguin in the book we'll talk about tonight, that penguin builds stuff of his own. Oh, geez, really, really gets after it. But of course, before we go too much further, let's just take a step back. Likely any listener to this podcast knows exactly who we're talking about and knows plenty about the origins of this character. But of course, we are talking about Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, created by Bill Finger and Bob Kane. First appeared in Detective Comics number 58, December of 1941. And really, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong here, really has kind of stayed in the limelight among Batman's rogues throughout the decades ever since. I think we talked recently about Riddler on an episode with me and Mr. Batman Book Club, Ryan Lauer, about the Riddler who disappeared for a good decade. Penguin's always kind of stayed around, has he not?
He has. He's been around since the beginning, and he's taken on various different roles. Early on, he's just kind of this pudgy little umbrella wielding goofball, right? Like, and that kind of carried on into 66, and then Burton turned him on his head in 1992 and gave him a French flipper and some black goo.
Oh man, so much black goo and horniness. Just a perv.
He's no, well, if you're asking about, you're talking about horniness, like who's hornier, the Penguin or Chase Meridian? Like that's a Batman question for you.
That is a good point.
We should get the two of those together.
Yeah, we just made the podcast PG-13. Sorry, kids. We'll dial it back.
But so then you have what I think is kind of like the modern interpretation of Oswald, the gangster, the mafioso type figure operating out of the nightclub, and that's kind of where Oswald has stayed for a good, I'd say, since. I'm not really sure when he made that transformation. it had to be obviously before No Man's Land, but I think No Man's Land really took that and really ran with it. But that's the form of the Penguin that's really kind of stayed. And Gotham, Gotham, the TV show, which I'm not a big fan of, did kind of adapt Oswald into that way. And now we're going to see a real true mafia kingpin, or not a kingpin, but at least an enforcer in the Batman. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think I was just thinking about this. The Batman Arkham games sort of really reinforced that in a much broader audience.
Yeah.
Those games sold more than any comic book storyline, and kind of hit a broader audience. So I think that kind of helped to cement.
And what they did with the
turn.
monocle was pretty impressive as well. Like that's part of an injury that Penguin has sustained.
Right.
It was kind of, it's not really a monocle. It's the bottom of a beer bottle.
I know. Everything is just a little bit more twisted when it comes to Batman Arkham, right? And it's, in the previous episode of the podcast, Not the Social Hour, you can find it on the feed, where we talked about Batman, the movie from 1966. Trey Jackson and Ryan Lauer and I talked about, we spent quite a bit of time in particular discussing that movie about the villains, because there's a lot of carryover between Batman 66 and the Batman. The Penguin interpretation that Burgess Meredith really kind of brought to the public knowledge is what lasted for, at least, let me know if you agree. For really like 30 years. It's about 30 years where when I see the Penguin, I see Burgess Meredith's Penguin all the way through the Super Friends to the Superpowers line, essentially butted all the way up to, maybe trying to remember Penguin and Nightfall. Not super present, but it's probably No Man's Land where I really remember, and of course Batman Returns. They're getting away from Burgess Meredith.
Batman the animated series as well.
Good call.
Yeah. And then they took it a step further in the new animated adventures. That Burgess Meredith Penguin's very comic book accurate for the time. He is just kind of the like umbrella guy, and I still love it. I do. I love all iterations of Penguin, to be honest with you. From one of my favorite Penguin stories is the Penguin Affair. I discussed that on the Batman Book Club with Ryan Lauer, and there are some elements that I think are, and that's when we get into the story we're going to talk about. There's elements of Penguin Affair. There's elements of Batman Returns. There's even like this bit of an Oedipus complex. Like, this is a fascinating story that I read for the first time. It's been in my collection for a while. I haven't had a chance to read it. So when you reached out to me and said, I want to talk Ozzy, I said, well, I've got this story I've never read. So I'm talking about this for the first time. This has come highly recommended. Andy DiGenova, Ryan Lauer told me, raving about this book. And I do think it lived up to the hype.
Well, geez, Peter, you're on a roll here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce it? I had never read this story before. So, also, I know it wasn't my collection. I was able to get on this on DC Universe Infinite, but it was a first timer for me as well. But you keep going. Introduce this bad boy and let's get talking. Yeah,
Penguin, Pain and Prejudice, written by Gregg. I'm going to butcher everybody's name here. Gregg Hurwitz, and drawn by Symon Kudranski. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I just destroyed your name, pal. But it's like this story has emotional depth. It takes twists and turns. I think it's pretty much vintage Batman. It's got elements of, like I said, Returns and 66 involved. It seems to be like the perfect combination of all the highlights of Penguin and Batman. There's like some really campy parts, but then there's some really twisted and depressing parts. And at times it's like you're going on this seesaw. You're up and down and up and down. You don't know what's coming next. 1 minute Penguin's ordering hits on your entire family and telling you about it. And then the next he's sending penguin bombs into the city. It's pretty impressive how the depth the story goes through. And I think it's a really fascinating love tale as well for Oswald, going from loving his mother to loving, I forget the blind woman's name, but it's a really interesting story. And I am going to just agree with everyone who recommended it. If you love Oswald, I think this is a really interesting story and well worth your time.
Well, before we get too far into it, let's just take a step back and talk about how long this one's been around. I mentioned I had not read it before. You had not read it before, but it was in your floppy collection. I had to get this one digital for the show. Super glad you suggested it. Written, Penguin Pain and Prejudice came out between December 2011 and April 2012. Really highly regarded book. I went back and sort of checked each issue from a rating scale, Metacritic, and a couple other places. And this thing had between an 8 and a 9 on every single issue of the 5-issue run, which, I mean, pretty darn impressive to begin with. This was also happening along. This was a new 52. I want to ask you about this. Maybe we can do this now anyway. I thought maybe we'd talk about it a little bit later where this fit in from a continuity standpoint. But this was happening alongside, the Snyder and Capullo legendary run on the title, on the main title. I wasn't quite sure. So before we get into the specifics, I wasn't quite sure if this was an in continuity story.
I don't think
not.
So.
Okay,
I don't see.
We might as well get that out of the way first.
There is no new 52 branding on any of the 5 issues that I got, and these are all first printings. So I don't know. I don't think it is. For me, I do not care about continuity anymore. I stopped caring about continuity
Easier
when I
that
first
way.
read Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that's just it. They don't care about continuity. I don't care. I'm just going to read the stories. I'll judge them for what they are. In my mind, it's all happened, and Batman's still like 32 years old. So like, whatever. But I do not think this is a new 52 book. If it is, please feel free to correct me in the comment section below.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. And, sort of, we obviously know the Penguin's in here. We know the Batman, of course, is going to be in here. The portrayal of Batman, just from a costume standpoint, didn't seem to be quite on point. It almost felt like a little bit more like a Lee Bermejo Batman, not quite all the way there. But that was the first thing I saw when I didn't think Capullo Batman. I thought Bermejo Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Both incredibly wonderful in my opinion. But from a continuity standpoint, that made me kind of sit and think like, oh, which one is this? So it was an intriguing storyline to me. From issue number 1, I was really, really hooked on this book. It was one of the fastest first issues of a limited series I remember reading in recent memory. And obviously this is a decade old at this point. But that first issue flew by and I had a hard time putting it down. I started reading it at night. I got through the first 3 issues kind of lickety split, and it was just late enough where I had to get to bed. Same. But I woke up and I'm like, I need to finish those next 2 issues, and I bet I can do it. And they're not short reads, but you just want to keep going because the story and the plot line for me, it really pulled me in. I was really invested quite quickly with this book. So if you want to give, since the listeners that maybe have not read this, like you and I had prior to this, is there a sort of Cliff Note summary of the plot that you'd like to hit them with? And then we'll kind of chop it up a bit more closely.
Well, I mean, I'll just say this.
Don't give it all away. Don't give it all away.
You get a real sense for how evil Oswald can be. But in a way, he wasn't really born like that. He was kind of made into this just evil person, really almost kind of, almost similar to the Joker. It just takes one bad day, but Oswald had like one bad childhood. And it spanned for a while, and his family was not very respectful of him because of his looks and his appearance, which seems very Batman Returns. And he seems like a young boy who was pushed to the limit, and he's finally rebelling against society. And the only person who loved him was his mother. And in this story, his mother comes and goes. She passes on, and Oswald seems to kind of be distraught until he rekindles that love with someone else. And because this individual has no sight and seems to be made fun of in a similar light, Oswald takes a fancy to her, and they seem to bond over who they essentially. It's funny because she doesn't really know who Oswald really is. He's kind of putting on a front, but he's good to her. Like, you could see the good in Oswald when he wants it to be, but he is a very ruthless individual.
And that ruthlessness shows up early on, and we see it a number of times. This is a Penguin who will not take out his ruthlessness on the individual who has offended him, but on everyone else around that person or in that person's life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first individual we find out was actually a high school classmate of Barbara Gordon,
Yes.
who bumps into the Penguin at the Iceberg Lounge. He is a crime lord of Gotham. There's no two ways about it, right? He's not just a super villain. He is a crime lord. He is in organized crime. This is his nightclub of operation.
He is the kingpin to this universe. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
Spider-Man has the Kingpin, Daredevil has the Kingpin, Batman has the Penguin.
That was the exact feel that I got. This is the Kingpin of Gotham City. And people are afraid. They respect him because Penguin has created such a level of fear of what he is willing to do to everyone in your life that there is not a chance that you would cross this Penguin, which might include, cutting the lines to your parents' car's brakes and sending them off a cliff. It might be, getting your child bumped down on the donor organ recipient list.
Yeah, there is no means to the ends that Oswald will go to get payback.
Oh my gosh. It's stabbing a loved one of someone who has offended him with an infected needle or something full of drug. I can't remember which one it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is intense. And, you are also, my one of my go-tos for knowledge about The Sopranos. There was some sort of Tony Soprano in this Penguin to me, where it's a monster, it's a bad person, but you're sympathizing enough with everything that's going on with this person that you're almost terrified and disappointed when things start to go wrong. You're not rooting for them. I guess you sort of root for Tony more throughout the series than you do Oswald here. But the protagonist, the main character in the story, is somebody to be awful, that does awful things, that for some reason you still are engaged with at a level different than most villains. Is that an apt comparison, or am I way off base?
No, I think you're right. I think that's a very accurate comparison. I mean, you don't know what's going to set Oswald off either. Like, his second victim in the book, Oswald just gets upset because the guy's chewing gum, and he shoots back a smart remark. And then, everyone that guy knows bites the bullet.
Everybody.
But there's also an interesting dynamic here. Like, we mentioned that young boy earlier, who's a friend of Barbara Gordon's. Like, well, it's like you're the lesser of two evils to an extent. Cause this kid is out in the Iceberg Lounge selling like meth. Right?
I think it's either way.
Regardless,
illegal drug.
Illegal drug. Like, he's selling he's a drug dealer. So like, I remember like at one point, Batman's like, this kid wasn't selling drugs, he wouldn't be in this situation. Like, him and Gordon are having this conversation, being like, we're talking about two bad people here, and clearly one went above and beyond evil, but you gotta, if you put yourself in a sketchy situation, chances are something sketchy is going to happen to you. And I think that's very present in this book. And sometimes you don't know you're going to be in a sketchy situation. Sometimes you could just be an EMT on a job and you mouth off to the wrong person, so it just goes to show you, like, you never know what someone's going through. You never know what someone's really capable of. So you're mostly better off just keeping your mouth shut.
Well, in this book really does, I think, really strong job, because sometimes this kind of gets thrown out as like, oh, that old cliche, the sympathetic villain. Marvel gets a lot of crap for this in their movies. The best villains aren't really villains. There's some tragic character. And we see, you mentioned this, Oswald from a young age, sort of despised, tortured, shunned by his dad and his brothers and his classmates. You start to understand what has brought this person from a place of pain to a place of using pain as something he can inflict on others as an element of control, because it had controlled him as a child. Mm-hmm. And the one constant, the one refuge, the one solace that he had was the love of his mother, and how that transitioned to his adult life through the passing of his mother to the love of another woman who doesn't inflict him with pain or torture him or look down on him, because she, of course, is blind, as we mentioned, and he believes that keeps her from seeing, the deformities or the abnormalities that he has. And then she also finds someone that, this was, I think, a little bit more of a stretch, that doesn't look down on her for being blind. I think, obviously there are challenges from someone that has different abilities or disabilities than others, but that kind of comparison point between Penguin being the Penguin and then, Cassandra is her name, not having her sight, was a little bit interesting of a pairing, but it brought you to a point where you could sympathize, empathize, if not sympathize, and understand, if not condone the actions of this Penguin, so to speak.
And you can see Oswald is still keeping her at arm's length. Like she wants to
touch
use her
beak.
hands to see Oswald. I use my hands to see, and Oswald's very hesitant. He knows what he looks like. He wishes he was that tall. He wishes he was Batman almost. Like there's a scene where like he's looking in the mirror and we see Oswald. He sees himself as almost like this muscular figure. It's kind of fascinating to see Oswald. I don't think I've ever seen him this vulnerable before.
No,
that's where this book really excels at, is the vulnerability of Oswald. It gives you reasons and his motivations. Like I understand, like, like I said, like No Man's Land, he's clearly, the mafioso kingpin. He's been there for a while, but it's like, how did he get there? His rise to the top. And here you see the ruthlessness and what he was able to do to get there, from eliminating his closest family members one by one.
Oh my gosh.
Just complete and utter fashion, it almost making them look like accidents,
Yeah.
Whether it's like his brother, he's putting cement blocks on his feet so he can drive at such a young age to run over one brother. His one other brother is a hockey player. He melts the ice
with a teapot.
Oh
my gosh, that was good.
And he falls right through. He poisons his own brother with a poison sandwich, so he chokes on his own vomit. And I forgot actually how he killed his father. But
he takes out his, I think. He got pneumonia somehow, or made it seem like he got.
Because Oswald was dirty, so they went outside because he refused to let Oswald get clean in the house. And so you could see the methodical nature of Oswald at a young age, how he understood how to manipulate people and their surroundings to get what he wanted. And what he ultimately wanted was just to be around the one person who showed him affection and cared for him, and that was his mother.
Yeah, and that's, you sort of have this Oedipal complex theme where the father seems to insinuate he thinks maybe Oswald as a child looks too lovingly at his mother. I think there's this theme of Beauty and the Beast that sort of is shared back and forth between Cassandra, however they would pronounce it in print, and Oswald. There is this sort of like, you mentioned the self-created orphan where, twist and turn, this guy took out his whole family to have mommy to himself and to kind of relieve himself of the torture and harassment from his father and brothers and kind of make him the sole heir. They don't quite put such a fine point on it that's kind of, that had some impact to the family wealth or money or something to allow him to kick off this criminal empire that he has. But there's a lot of different sort of, fairly standard, I wouldn't go so far to say cliche, but fairly standard thematic elements that when they kind of all cook up in this pot, all end up being better than what a lot of them end up being on their own in other places. Like it's better than the sum of its parts is what I guess I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, I agree. Because like I said earlier, it takes elements of like 60 of just wackiness of 66 and Batman Returns, and it puts it in this very as dark and grim as Batman Returns can be. This is even more so, in my opinion.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I actually have in my sort of show docs of things I wanted to make sure we talked on is I want to run through a list, Peter, if you're open to this. This is a little bit like a game show. I'm not going to tell you if you're right or wrong. I'm just going to pick your brain. I'm going to name an iteration of the character, and you tell me if you see something present in this manifestation. Like, I think there's a lot. It's kind of like I don't know if it's a melting pot or a tossed salad, but there's a whole lot of different stuff from different eras and iterations. I'll name one. Could you tell me if you think you see it, and if you see it, which one it is?
Okay.
All right. So let's go all the way back. Golden Age Penguin. We're talking about the earliest appearances, back when comic books were young. Is there any of that Penguin in this very recent, very modern Penguin story?
I'd say the umbrella obsession with the mother, how the mother says, you always carry an umbrella, always have an umbrella with you. That was very potently stressed in the book. So I would say that's kind of that era of Penguin.
Ding, ding, ding. 100%. As soon as I got to that page, I'm like, oh my gosh, they are really going to go all the way back to the 40s where Penguin got his umbrella because he had an overprotective mother that was worried he was going to get sick being out in the rain, and they made it work in this modern story. That's fantastic. All right. Let's flash forward just a little bit. Call this Silver Age, could be comics, could be the 66 TV series. How does that show up in this book if it's there?
I'd say the robotic penguin servant that he gifted his mother. I think that's where that comes from.
And I think that's so good. And it is insane that something that absurd works in this story in the way that it does.
And then it comes full circle where, while Oswald does get caught for his crimes, it's left to believe that penguin does break him out of jail, even though it doesn't look like a penguin anymore.
No, it's like a death machine with rotating buzzsaws and everything else. But yeah, he goes from, sort of like, I've got this robot penguin thing to an army of robotic penguins, all the way to Penguin Terminator that's going to get me out of Blackgate. All right, let's go modern age. You can include the, bronze to modern age penguin, 80s penguin to even early 90s. You mentioned Penguin Affair. That's something I thought of when I was
when he's released, he's like one of his plans when he's playing his game with Cassandra is he's got this flock of birds that just seems to go wreaking havoc on Gotham City, which I think is a wonderful nod to the Penguin Affair, because that is basically what that book is about, is Penguin using birds to commit his crimes.
Absolutely. Here's this is Peter, you're hitting them all out of the park, buddy. If only your performance is on What Are You?
I hate that
as good as this, you'd be the king. Let's go really easy. Here's a slam dunk. 1992's Batman Returns. Are there elements of that in here?
It's the penguin bombs for sure. They're flying around the city, and I love when Batman just gets out of the Batwing and jumps on one. That's a combination of 92 and 66. The fact that Batman lands on the bomb or the missile or whatever it is, and then just kind of like redirects it. Like that's that's great. Comic book bliss.
And also, issue one, this is, I'm comparing it to a movie, not a TV show.
I do it all the time.
Issue 1 is Oswald being born, the doctor handing the baby over. Mother, this is different from 92. There's no both parents saying, let's throw this thing in the sewer. Mother loves baby. Father has a very different response to the
very Batman Returns.
Very Batman Returns. And, sort of, I think we're used to seeing, he doesn't have the flippers in this one. He's also not smoking the cigs in the big long holder in this comic book.
Although he's got it in the covers.
Yeah, the covers, but not in the page. I always wondered if I read that, and I was wondering throughout each one if that was like an editorial thing at the time. I know like Marvel won't allow any characters to smoke. Like Wolverine doesn't have a cigar.
It drives me crazy. The Thing should always have a cigar in his mouth, in my opinion.
Wolvie and the Thing should both be chomping on a stogie. I wonder if that was you can have a cover art thing, but not interior storytelling with it. Not that it matters to me too much for the Penguin. But that was very Returns from a deformity standpoint, right? And then let's go all the way, since we kind of hit 92 and we've already talked about the animated series. Let's go to current state, or just before current state. Penguin as he has appeared in, let's call it 2000s and above.
Just the mafia aspect, him running the Iceberg Lounge, that type stuff. The fact that Joker pops up twice in the lounge in some of the most ridiculous scenarios, just
wearing a bra and panties, throwing a knife at a dude on a spinning wheel, just like, hey man, you want to knock?
Yeah, just that whole aspect of him just operating in not only a nightclub, but what seems like what do they call it? An auto body, a chop shop, a speakeasy all in one. So that whole aspect
he's got a lot going on. And then obviously the reason we're talking about this is we're on the road to the Batman. Of what we've seen in these comic books, in this run, what do you think do you think in Matt Reeves' The Batman, we will see anything similar to what we saw in this run? Not necessarily did Matt Reeves read Penguin, Pain and Prejudice as inspiration for Colin Farrell, but based on what we've seen so far in the promo materials and everything else that we know about the movie and reading this, where would you anticipate potentially seeing some crossover?
To be honest, I don't see a whole lot of similarities between this story and what we're getting from Matt Reeves, because I haven't seen that much of Oswald to begin with, outside of "Take it easy, sweetheart." Like,
I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I don't know what this Penguin is. I know he seems like he's kind of a low-level enforcer. We'll see where he ends up at the end of the movie. I kind of feel like the movie, in a sense, will show us the rise of Penguin in a way.
Dude, I was going to say, some part of me thinks this is going to be a little bit of Penguin Begins.
Like in this book, he is clearly top dog. He's eating, at the top of the food chain here. I don't think that's what we're going to get from Matt Reeves' Batman, Matt Reeves' Penguin in the Batman, because remember, Falcone is actually alive and well in the Matt Reeves movie. While I have stopped watching all promotional material for the Batman in preparation of the movie, I want to try to go in as dark as possible. I know some people have seen the great John Turturro as Mr. Falcone, but I have not. So I don't even know what that character looks like, but I know he is present. I don't know the outcome of that character. I don't know the ramifications that it'll have on Oswald. So I can't answer that question, but I will tell you this. I think it'll be absolutely fascinating, because I've been dying for a live action interpretation true to the modern day comics. And I do not include Gotham, because I won't include Gotham in anything. I'm sorry for those of you who like it, but it's not very good.
Well, and here's the deal. Everybody has this tolerance level for like, hey, it's a version of this thing. I don't need it to be exactly like the stuff that I get someplace else. As long as they're just doing a little bit of version of it, I'm here for the fun. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's funny. I sometimes operate like that. I don't always. I'll give you an example. You guys know I like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. There's it's not so new. It's been a couple months now. Kids animated, very updated, futuristic, squarely aimed at like the kids of today. And it's just kind of a fun, different thing. And I like that. Gotham to me was not a fun, different thing. It was an abomination.
You bring up that Masters of the Universe show. To me, I had a similar reaction to Teen Titans, that animated show.
Sure.
The animation was different. The style of humor was different. It took me a while to get used to it, but I've grown to really appreciate and love. Whereas like, I will say I think Gotham, one of the better things about the show was the Penguin. One of the better things about the show was the best things about the show: Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman, Alfred. Everything else is hot garbage.
But a Gotham Penguin felt like a different character to me.
He wasn't portly, but they did give him some character depth. He was picked on, very similar to this. Like you could see
weird mom issues.
Weird mom issues. He had the ruthlessness. There is some inspiration there. While Robin Lord Taylor did the best that he could, I ultimately think the direction and the writing was the downfall. That some moments were better than others, but I don't think that. By no means do I think that is to be considered definitive. And that goes the same for DeVito's Penguin. As much as I love that is an Elseworlds Penguin if I ever saw one.
Absolutely, it's pure Elseworlds.
Colin Farrell's Penguin looks like we're going to get a definitive Penguin here.
Well,
it could all go out the window when I see the movie. I could hate this movie coming out. I don't know. I'll let you know in March. But this looks like the Penguin that I've been yearning for years.
Well, and I was going to say too, speaking of Gotham and also the Batman, I don't anticipate that this version of the Penguin is going to stray away as far as some of the elements of Gotham's Penguin. But where I think some of the similarities might be is we saw Gotham's Penguin kind of come up through the ranks and struggle to make the impact on the criminal underworld that he did. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Colin Farrell's Penguin do that, because you said like this is kind of like he feels like an enforcer, like a bit of muscle. And then if he has the opportunity to rise through the ranks to become, a super villain or a criminal mastermind or, whatever, crime boss, it doesn't feel like Matt Reeves, the Batman universe, will maybe have quote unquote super criminals in the same way that we've seen places before. But a crime boss, a criminal mastermind is certainly something that.
And that might be
feels
something
in
that we
line.
see explored in that Penguin TV show for HBO Max that's been rumored. I would love to see something like that, maybe some sort of gang war mini series. Maybe Penguin defects from the Falcones. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe he sees an opportunity and
Sure.
he runs with it. I'm not sure, but I will say from what I've seen with this Oswald, I'm very psyched and I'm very impressed. And it seems for as different as Matt Reeves' Riddler is, Matt Reeves' Oswald is for me, it's very comfortable, very comfortable. It seems like the Oswald that I've envisioned in my head. Like I picture that is now the Oswald I think of when I think of the Penguin. I'm thinking of this Colin Farrell type, portly out of shape. He's got scars on his faces. He's wearing these purple plaid vests.
Right.
Like that's the guy I'm now envisioning in my head as the Penguin. And I'm hoping that this movie pulls it off effortlessly. So that is my Penguin. So that's what I'm really pumped over. I'm pumped. I would love to get some sort of really, really close definitive Penguin here.
I would, we talked about this on the last episode. The international character poster was not necessarily my favorite piece of promo material they put out for the Batman, but dang, did our boy Oswald look great sitting front and center.
He looked good, but they made the biggest man the smallest person.
I know they shrunk
poster.
him in the scale.
I don't know why they had to do that, considering he's bookended by, I think it's Riddler and Zoe. Like, why couldn't he just be normal size? I don't know.
A little bit, taking up some space. That's a girthy dude, why not? He's a big boy.
We've all know that notoriously the bat suit can weigh up to like 70 pounds, especially like during the Kilmer and Clooney and Keaton era. I'm very curious, how much does this fat suit weigh for Colin Farrell?
Oh man. Because it doesn't look like that it's prosthetics. Like when we've seen him in motion, it looks like just a big dude. And the makeup, the face makeup, this Penguin, bring it back to Penguin Pain and Prejudice a little bit. He is he's kind of a wrinkly, besides the big old schnoz, right? He's kind of a wrinkly, sort of sallow, soft-faced, just a squishy looking.
He looks
doughy type guy.
He looks very Pillsbury Doughboy, right? He's small, he's round.
Yeah. And it feels like that's what Colin's getting us. The accent on Farrell, I did not read this Penguin with. That's the piece that I might be the most intrigued about in the Batman, when I've heard the Penguin's voice and how they're portraying the accent.
He sounds straight up WAP. He sounds like an Italian.
I can't say that, Peter. I think that might be a slur. You're going to get the Italian Anti-Defamation League's going to come after the podcast.
I'm pretty sure people are more upset that I celebrate Columbus Day than anything else.
It's a Northeast thing. I don't think they allow us to do that in Minnesota anymore.
They fight for it around here. But yeah, like there's some differences. Like he's clearly a 6 foot Penguin, right? He's a tall guy. He's not short.
Yeah, he looks
he's
like
not
a big
Danny
boy.
DeVito height, but like whatever. The fact that he's pulling off this mafioso angle is really impressive to me. Just because I love when Batman's taking on the mafia. Long Halloween, Batman Begins,
right?
Stuff like that. Those are those like stories. They appeal to me because I love mafia stories from The Godfather, The Sopranos, Goodfellas, Casino. Like I love that stuff. So it makes sense that Colin Farrell would and again, like Gotham City traditionally is in New Jersey. There is a heavy Italian American population within this state. So it makes sense that he's kind of got an easy, wise guy accent, and it just, again, you just see the homework and the time that Matt Reeves put into each and every one of these characters, and it shines through in all of them, and they're all so different and they're so well crafted.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that because it does feel like both between Reeves and Farrell, there are other actors that would have been, I think, a little bit more stereotypically in the Penguin's realm of popular culture awareness, Jonah Hill being one of them, that was rumored for this role. To end up with Colin Farrell feels like a very specific choice, and which tells me, and we know Reeves is a methodical filmmaker, that they have a clear vision for this character in the upcoming movie, who he is, what he is going to be, and what his place in this universe is. I can't wait to see it. I thought this was a fantastic read to kind of get the juices flowing and kind of get the wheel spinning around what could be. Because for all the reasons, Peter, you were like, bing, 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 like get them all, everything I was going to say and a couple things that I wasn't thinking of. This storyline, Penguin, Pain and Prejudice, felt like a distillation of decades and decades of Penguin material in one really nice storyline. It was a perfect appetizer. It really is.
I say it's a love letter to Oswald because, like you said, it just combines everything so well, from the campiness of the umbrella to just the ridiculousness of 1992's Batman Returns. Like it's and everything in between. It is a wonderful celebration of everything that Penguin was and was going to become at the time. So, shout out to Hurwitz because he really pulled this off effortlessly.
I didn't realize I hadn't heard Andy DiGenova talk about it. I always listen to his show, talk to Lauer all the time. I hadn't heard about it. It wasn't on my radar. So
I've tweeted with Andy about it. I bought it and Andy was raving about it. So, I mean, there's not many bigger Bat fans than Andy out there, so when he says something, you always take it with, reinforcement, and you're like, okay, this is the real deal.
Yeah. He's got to be the biggest Bat fan that I'm not on a daily group chat with. So I would agree with that. I would agree with that. This was a rock solid A for me. I think it's one of the finest villain standalone minis that I've read. Mm-hmm. I would recommend it to anyone who's looking to wet the palate before the upcoming movie. Check it out. You're not going to be disappointed. And if you are, I don't know, you got bad taste in comic books.
Yeah, sorry. It's so well written. It's so wonderfully drawn. For reading it for the first time, I'm actually disappointed in myself.
Me too.
I read a lot of stuff.
Same thought.
I don't know how this one slipped under my radar. I feel really bad about it, and I apologize. I mean, someone might have to take my Bat card away because I missed this. But I'm glad I was glad I was able to track it down and finally dive into it, because I think if you love Penguin as much as I do, it's a must read. It really is. Yeah,
I'm gonna go find this one on physical. I thought the same thing. Like, gosh, how did this one slip by me for 10 years? Because I would be surprised if there are people that read this that like the character that walked away being disappointed. I know there's people out there fond of saying that everything is subjective, but I think this is one that objectively is just a darn good comic book. I'm glad you mentioned it. Peter, as we wrap up here, the listeners love you. It's a joy every time you're on the show. Geez. And a lot of them might be looking for more of your stuff. Why don't you let them know where they can find it?
Well, you can follow me on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite platform, Verra, at Pete Illustrated. You can follow podcast number one. It's a podcast I co-host with the champion of Long Island, Eric Holzman, straight out of Gotham. That's straight_O_G, both on Twitter and Instagram. We have a Facebook group and a Facebook fan page. Follow podcast number two. That is a podcast I co-host with the dynamic duo of Sausage and Meatball from Chicago. That's Nick and Nico Caruso. Happy birthday, Daddy Bats. That is the Italian Spider-Man Coalition podcast, at Italians for Spider-Man, at Italians for Spidey on Twitter. We just rave about our favorite webhead, and probably the second greatest Peter ever to, grace your microphone. Follow at Team Yellow Oval as we get ready to celebrate everything from Michael Keaton returning in The Flash and bringing back that Yellow Oval for the first time since 1995 on the silver screen, as well as Joshua Williamson bringing back the Yellow Oval and Batman proper. Follow my comic book reviews on batmanonfilm.com. I've emailed a review of my favorite TV show, Batwoman. That is coming up. That show is fantastic. If you're a hater, I'm sorry for it, because it's the best Bat show on TV right now. Probably the best Bat show since '66. Let's put it that way.
Oh my gosh. Live action? At least
live action.
Live action.
It's good. It's really good. And I think it's very underrated. Check out my interviews on Batman on Film YouTube with Mr. Uslan. I got Tara Strong. And, I'm all over the place. Hit me up. If you don't agree with me, that's great. Let's talk about it. Let's have an argue. Let's bust some balls and let's have a good time.
I love it. Thank you, Peter. I always have a great time talking with you. We obviously talk a lot in our personal lives, on the text and on the telephone, but I always enjoy when we get to have a conversation that I know people are going to listen to. It's a little extra special. I'd love to keep the conversation going. You can do that by following at The Batman on Film over on Twitter. That's the news feed for the websites. Every time there's a new article posted or a bit of news that Bill Jet Ramey drops on the site, you'll get an update on that. Also, when new podcast episodes or social hours are posted. And you can follow me personally over at Garret Wato. That's at GarretWato. If there's anything you'd like to hear about, we're doing the road to Batman, the Batman thing for a few more weeks here, and then we'll be talking recap and reviews and all of that. But afterwards, if you're like, hey, Garrett, here's something I'd love to hear on the BOF podcast, I want you to email me that. And if you say, hey, Garrett, I want to share my thoughts about what's been going on in the Batman on Film podcast, I'd love you to send me that. I'll even read those things. You can email me at garret.grev@batmanonfilm.com. That's GARRET.GREV@batman-on-film.com. And remember, dear listeners, it's not who you are underneath, but it's what you do that defines you. Thank you for listening.
You have been listening to the official podcast of the one and only Batman on Film website. On Twitter, follow BOF at Batman on Film and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. For Jet and everyone at Batman on Film, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening to the authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.